This presentation was prepared by the Courts of Saskatchewan to help newcomers to Canada understand the court system in the province. Let's start with the law. Laws are like rules. They tell us how to behave toward each other, what we can do and what we cannot do. An example is, don't steal from other people or take things that are not yours. Another example is that we don't hit or hurt other people. In Canada, everyone must obey the same laws. You must obey the law even if you don't agree with it. We have to pay taxes, for example, even if we'd rather not. Another example, the law says you can't text and drive, even if you think you're good at it. Not knowing the law is not a reason for not obeying it. It's important to become familiar with Canadian laws. Traffic safety laws are one area where there may be laws that are new to you. For example, in Canada, young children must be in a car seat if they are riding in a vehicle. The idea that everyone must follow the same laws is known as the rule of law. No person or group in power can change the law or use it to suit their own purpose. The rule of law says that nobody is above the law, not the police officers, or politicians, or celebrities, not business interests, or pets. Okay, just kidding, pets are above the law. Another way of saying that is that all people are equal under the law. Women are equal to men. Young people are equal to older people. People who are poor are equal to people who have lots of money. This idea of equality is so important that Canada passed what is known as the Charter of Rights and Freedoms into law in 1982. The Charter tells us how we can expect to be treated by others, especially by those working for the government. The Charter protects people from discrimination in a number of areas. Discrimination means treating people unfairly and differently than others. Discrimination denies people their human rights. The Charter says people cannot discriminate against others based on several things, including marital status, place of birth, religion, sex, and age. The Charter also guarantees or promises every person in Canada certain rights. For example, all Canadian citizens have the right to vote in an election and to run for office. And all Canadian citizens and permanent residents have the right to live and work anywhere in Canada, in any province. The Charter also protects the rights of people who are charged with a crime. People charged with a crime have the right to speak to a lawyer as soon as they're charged. A lawyer can help them understand the charges and the law related to their actions. People charged with a crime have the right to be presumed innocent. This means that people don't have to prove they are innocent or that they didn't do the crime. Instead, the prosecutor, a lawyer who works for the government, has to prove the person is guilty or that he or she did the crime. People charged with a crime have the right to a fair trial. At a trial, the two sides argue their case in front of a judge. Judges have an important role in upholding the law and ensuring rights and freedoms. There are a few important things to remember about judges in Canada. First of all, it's important to understand that in Canada, courts and judges are separate and independent from government. Governments make the laws. This could be the Government of Canada in Ottawa, the Government of Saskatchewan in Regina, or even a municipal government like the City of Regina. Judges apply the laws in courtrooms to resolve disputes. You should also know that judges in Canada are appointed by the government based on their legal knowledge and experience. Applications to become a judge are looked at very closely. Judges can't be fired for making an unpopular decision. This means that judges in Canada don't have to give in to government pressure or public pressure to decide a case in a certain way. Another thing to keep in mind is that judges are impartial. They aren't on anyone's side. Judges listen to all of the information presented at trial, and they make their decisions based on the facts of the case and the law. Judges in Canada are paid well. They don't need to accept money as a bribe to make a particular decision. Judges can't be fired, but they are accountable. Courtrooms are open for the public to attend and watch trials, and the public can see what's going on. People can satisfy themselves that the justice system is working. As well, judges give reasons for their decisions to allow people to see how the judge reached his or her decision. These reasons are based on the facts and grounded in the law. Finally, judges' decisions can be appealed to a higher court. No single judge has enough authority to override the charter. To that end, everything in a courtroom is recorded so that it can be reviewed at a higher court if necessary. An appeal is when someone believes a mistake or error was made at a trial. Let's move now to the courts. There are many courts in Canada. There is a federal court that deals with cases that involve the rights of all Canadians, like citizenship, or with cases that involve an organization owned by the government, like Canada Post. There is a tax court to deal with cases involving income taxes. An appeal from either of these courts goes to the Federal Court of Appeal and then to the Supreme Court of Canada. If someone who is a member of the military is charged with a crime while on duty, the trial will be held in military court, with any appeal going to the Court-Martial Appeal Court and then to the Supreme Court of Canada. For the rest of the presentation, we're going to focus on the courts here in the centre, as they are found in Saskatchewan. Each province has a similar setup. It's easiest to think of the levels of court like a pyramid. At the base of the pyramid is the Provincial Court, a very busy court with many locations around the province. Moving up the pyramid, we come to the Court of Queen's Bench. This is another trial court, and the only place where you can get a jury trial in the province. At the top of the pyramid is the Court of Appeal for Saskatchewan, which hears appeals from both of the other courts. And just so that we don't forget, the Supreme Court of Canada is the highest court, and it sometimes hears appeals from Saskatchewan, although generally not more than 4 or 5 a year. Now we'll look at each of these a little more closely. We'll start with the Provincial Court. All of the courts are busy, but the Provincial Court sees the highest number of people coming through its doors. Now we'll watch a short video on the court.
Saskatchewan's Provincial Court hears about 95% of all criminal hearings, all but the most serious youth matters, and civil claims up to $20,000, more commonly known as small claims. Provincial Court has 13 permanent locations and travels to almost 70 circuit points across the province. Depending on the purpose of the courtroom and the style of the courthouse, each courtroom may look quite different in each location. Circuit points are often rooms in a building used for other purposes and may not look much like a standard courtroom at all. At the front of every standard courtroom is a large desk. This is where the judge sits. Judges in the Provincial Court are referred to as Your Honor and are identified by the black robes with blue trim that they wear. This signifies the judge is a member of the Provincial Court. In front of the judge is the clerk of the court, who also wears a black robe, but without the blue trim. Facing the judge and clerk are the lawyers for both parties. Typically, in Provincial Court criminal matters, one lawyer is a Crown prosecutor. Provincial Court courtrooms have a witness box where a witness sits to give his or her evidence. If it's a criminal matter, the accused may be sitting at a table with his or her lawyer. Or, if the accused person is in custody, he or she may sit in a separate box altogether. There may also be Aboriginal court workers, youth workers, alternative measures staff, or probation officers in the courtroom, depending on what type of matters are being heard.
So, to recap, all criminal matters start in Provincial Court, and many also finish there as well. Provincial Court is where the youth matters, or those involving youth under the age of 18, are heard. Traffic Safety Court is also within the jurisdiction of Provincial Court, as is Small Claims Court. If you have a dispute with a neighbor or another person, or perhaps with a company, and the value of the disputed item or service is less than $30,000, you may be able to deal with it in small claims court, where the process is simpler. Moving up the pyramid to the Court of Queen's Bench. We'll watch another brief video.
The Court of Queen's Bench is the highest trial court in the province. It handles many of the most serious criminal matters, all jury trials, civil disputes with a value greater than $20,000, all lawsuits involving land, estates, and the majority of family law cases, which include divorce and custody hearings. The decisions from some provincial court matters, including small claims, can also be appealed to the Court of Queen's Bench. The court sits in 11 locations or judicial centers across the province. While courtrooms may look somewhat different at each location, depending on the purpose of the courtroom and the style of the courthouse, most courtrooms share common characteristics. At the front of every standard courtroom is a large raised desk. This is where the judge sits. Judges in the Court of Queen's Bench are referred to as My Lady or My Lord, and are identified by the black robes with red trim that they wear. This signifies the judge is a member of the Court of Queen's Bench. In front of the judge is the clerk of the court, who also wears a black robe, but without the red trim. Facing the judge and clerk are two tables, where the lawyers for both parties sit. Since most court proceedings are open to the public, there may be people there to observe, including representatives of the media, as media outlets frequently report about court matters. The Court of Queen's Bench courtrooms have a witness box where a witness sits to give his or her evidence. If it's a criminal matter, there will also be a box for the accused person to sit. And if it's a jury trial, there will be special seating for the jurors as well.
The video mentions a jury. What is a jury? A jury is a group of 12 random people called jurors. In a jury trial, a jury hears the facts of the trial, along with the judge. At the end of the trial, and sometimes during it, the judge explains the law to the jury. The jury then decides if the accused is guilty or innocent. Let's go back to the video.
A jury trial is where a group of people from the community are selected to form a jury to hear all of the evidence and decide the matter, such as whether in a criminal matter the accused person is guilty or not guilty. A judge still presides over the trial, and in criminal matters, if the accused is convicted, the judge decides their sentence.
Again, to recap, the Court of Queen's Bench is the only place you can get a jury trial, and in general, it handles the more serious criminal matters. The court also deals with family law matters like divorce and custody, and with wills and estates. As people live their lives, they accumulate possessions and sometimes money. This becomes their estate. A will tells people what you want to have happen to your money and possessions after you die. If there isn't a will, your money and possessions will be distributed according to the law, which may not be what you want for your family. Finally, the Court of Queen's Bench deals with appeals from the Provincial Court. We've come to the Court of Appeal, the highest court in Saskatchewan. Once again, we've got a video to watch.
The Court of Appeal is the highest court in the province. It has 7 full-time judges. The court sits in Regina and sometimes in Saskatoon. Unlike the Provincial Court and the Court of Queen's Bench, the Court of Appeal does not conduct trials. Rather, it reviews the decisions of the other courts and, if necessary, corrects any errors that might have been made. The judges sit at a large desk at the front of the courtroom. Typically, 3 judges hear each appeal, although in very important matters, 5 or even 7 judges might sit. The judges wear black robes with white shirts and tabs. They are referred to in the courtroom as "my lord" or "my lady." There is no witness box in the courtroom because witnesses are almost never heard in the Court of Appeal. The lawyers sit at tables at the front of the courtroom and speak from a lectern. Their clients and the general public sit in the benches at the back of the courtroom. There is no general or open-ended right of appeal to the Court of Appeal. A party who is not satisfied with a ruling in a trial court may take his or her case to the Court of Appeal only if allowed to do so by the Court of Appeal Act, the Criminal Code, or some other statute.
And one more time, we'll recap. The Court of Appeal is not a trial court. It hears appeals from both of the trial courts below, and a panel of at least 3 judges reviews for errors only. And again, we don't want to forget about the Supreme Court of Canada in Ottawa, the country's highest court. It hears appeals from all other courts in Canada. However, practically speaking, the Court of Appeal is the end for most people, since the Supreme Court typically hears fewer than 5 cases a year from our province. Let's talk about what you'll see in the courtroom. Courtrooms are dignified and formal. There are strict rules and ways of doing things. We stand up when the judge enters or leaves the courtroom. It's about showing respect. Even more, we show respect to every person in the courtroom. The judge will address the accused person with respect, and the lawyers often call each other "my friend." Remember that courts are open to the public. If you have to go to court, try to visit a courtroom first to get a little bit more comfortable. Each one looks a little different. This is a small courtroom in Moose Jaw that can be used for a number of different types of hearings. This one is in Prince Albert. It's often used for family law hearings. Many courtrooms have a specific purpose. This is the jury room in Prince Albert, for example. Notice the jury box on the left side? This is our in-custody or bail court in Regina. Accused persons appear by video at the front or in person in the box on the right. A small civil or family law courtroom in Regina. No matter which courtroom you visit, you can be assured that all provide justice and equal treatment under the law. Thank you for your interest in the courts of Saskatchewan.